Overpower has really caught the community by storm. It's causing great contention. Because of that, emotions start to run wild, conspiracy theories pop up, and unfortunately, what we see now is a lot of misinformation that is causing even further disturbance in the community. We don't want that. So in this video, we're going to talk about what Overpower actually is, at least in my opinion. We're going to take that information and use that to dispel some of the myths that are going around, because we don't want to continue the flaming fire and negativity that people have when it comes to Overpower, it comes to Marvel Strike Force. Some of that's unavoidable, but some of that is endurable. And I think that at the other side, one of the things that we might see is indeed a silver lining, and perhaps even some information to show that Marvel Strike Force is getting back on track and getting back to that game that we love and enjoy. Let's take a look. So we're reminded of our blog post here. It came out April 2nd, introducing Overpower. Now, the point of Overpower, according to this, is to restore balance to the game. So that is the foundation. That's the lens that we're going to be looking through, the restoration of balance to the game. That would seem to indicate that something is wrong, something is amiss, and it needs to be adjusted. Change and adjustments cause pain, right? We as humans do not like change. Adjustments can cause pain, and that's what we're feeling in the community. So with this main point in mind, let's look at how the Overpower system functions and see what impact it's actually having on the game. Is it helping to restore balance? To get an understanding of what's actually going on, let's just briefly revisit how Overpower works. It takes into consideration three things: the level of your character, number one; number two, the level of your isotope 8. So we know that isotope 8 goes from green to blue to purple, and the highest level of purple we can have is 3. Purple 3 is the highest level of isotope 8 at present. Number 3, your gear tier. Gear tier 19 is going to be the most common in the game. We can go up to gear tier 20. Those 3 items have a metric that are added together, and in the upper right hand corner, they give you a Overpower score. If that Overpower score is the same as your opponent, nothing happens. Overpower cancels each other out. If there is a difference, that's when Overpower kicks in, and that's what's been causing the issues in the game. So just by way of reminder, in my opinion, Overpower is not a progression system or anything like that. Its goal is to balance out the meta in the game. At some point, we all reach what I'm going to call here the baseline economy. So essentially, for a player, this is from the free-to-play perspective, a player who is engaged in the game will gather enough resources on a regular basis to make sure that every character that comes out, or at least every team that is released into the game before the next team is finalized, will be able to reach these levels. You should be able to get gear tier 19. You should be able to bring each character to level 105, and you should be able to get purple ISO 3 on the character. When you reach that point, you're in the baseline economy. The game is set up for free-to-play players to be able to do that. So that means the only way you could go farther than this, the only way you could get more resources, perhaps that gear tier 20, is to spend money. And this is a concept that I believe we're all familiar with. There's always a chase item with chase characters that you can spend money for to get ahead early. Gear tier 20 right now is that, and individuals, again, who spend money or are really, really good at min-maxing the game are able to get in on it early and get that advantage of getting that new piece of gear. With Overpower, though, now that new piece of gear bumps them up in Overpower level, causing imbalance, which, again, is starting to create some issues in the game. So when Overpower hit, it took a lot of the community, it shocked a lot of the community, right? It took a lot of people by surprise. A lot of things were said, and we need to start to dig into some of this to make sure we actually have the right information. So unfortunately, because of social media, individuals want to make videos, they want to make posts so they can get upvotes and things like that for their own gain. That does not necessarily mean the information that they're saying is absolutely true. So in some cases, people are simply misinformed. Some cases, people are being malicious. In some cases, there was just emotional outbursts in the beginning because of not understanding. So we're going to try to clarify some things to help people understand what's really going on. The first misconception or lie that's being told is that our old counters will not work anymore. The foremost example that's being presented is the fact that people are saying Sinister 6 will not work on Spider Society anymore. Now, we recognize that is simply not the case. I think what's going on is perhaps your Spider Society looks similar to my Sinister 6. Okay? If we're free to play players, we're probably close in the end game of things looking like this. So Spider Society, being a raid team, we've heavily invested in. A miner at 100, we know people have already taken them to 105, which would give them all Overpower 10. Otherwise, Gear Tier 19, Blue Purple ISO, because we needed that for the raid. So we heavily invested in that team. However, the Sinister 6 are a war team. War is not usually at the top of people's list. There's a lot of the community that does not enjoy war, or they don't really go hard on it, we should say. They might enjoy it, but they don't go hard on it. So they haven't invested in their Sinister 6 team. And so like you can see here, I have some investment in those characters, those first 3 in the top row, but then things kind of trail off, right? I haven't necessarily put the power into them. Their overpower levels going down because they were working fine, right? They were working fine before overpower, so I did not invest in the characters. Overpower hits, now there's an imbalance, a big imbalance, if we're being honest, and it takes people by surprise. Characters get erased, and the consensus then is that the team does not work. However, we have to keep in mind that Overpower is here for balance purposes. So if I invest more in the team, they're obviously going to work because it's going to cancel the Overpower out. But how much investment do I actually need? So this picture is from a matchup for, again, this is our most recent Alliance War. 2 great illustrations here. So on the bottom, we have my Sinister 6, right? We have my Sinister 6, and we see they have indeed defeated a Spider Society team that overpowers me by quite a bit, right? They got 10s. I don't have any 10s. They have 10s. Now, the match, admittedly, the match was a lot closer than it looks right there, right? It was a lot more difficult than the way it looks right there. There was some healing, obviously, on my part. We were able to get through. But the point we're trying to make here is that your teams still work. Your teams still work. We just can't take those giant swings that we used to, and we might have to actually pay attention, right? If we just hit auto, it might not go well. It might not go well. We might need to pay more attention if we take war that seriously to what's going on. We might need to, again, brush up on how the matchups work, knowing what our characters actually do versus what the opposing characters actually do. And then the second illustration at the top there, what do I have? I have Night Stalkers, which is a natural counter to Orcus. They're overpowering me, right? I got 9s, they got 10s. I still have the victory. Why? Again, overpower is not supposed to take away your ability to play. If the counter works, the counter should still work. The distance between the 2 teams, though, is going to be taken into consideration. So then that kind of leads people to the next thought process that Scopely is somehow trying to harm us and make us build older teams. Now, this is one of the reasons I got into content creation, because misinformation like this is what hurts players. It hurts people's account. Scopely does not, as a free-to-play player, Scopely does not want you to spend your resources in going back and building older teams. That hurts you in the long run. Part of the balancing act is to help you appreciate when it's time to stop, right? It narrows your ability to punch up. So in this case, right, maybe not this exact example, but I was using out of time to counter Night Stalkers in war. And a setup kind of like this worked absolutely fine before Overpower. I have the Black Knight, who I put power into, and the rest of the team, I didn't power up at all. They were able to punch up big time into Night Stalker teams. We have some other examples of characters and teams that we probably know that were no-brainer counters that we would use limited or no investment, and we were able to punch up into an opposing team, and those days are coming to an end. It's trying to balance that part of the game, that if you're not going to invest in the character, you cannot use them to punch up big time into teams that have investment in them. Okay, so this team would still work. Out of time would still work if I put investment into them. And sometimes people are being told, well, that's what you're supposed to do, but that is not. Do not invest in older teams willy-nilly as a free-to-play player. There is a myth that has persisted since the early days of Marvel Strike Force that we're supposed to be able to power up the entirety of our roster. And this is not true. There is no mobile game that I know of that lets the free-to-play society power up the entirety of their roster. The strength of a wide roster is usually given to the spending portion of the community, but there is allowances for us as free-to-play to build extra characters than what's just coming out right now. Both Rage Gaming and Big Positive Geek have continually shown that the economy supports you bring up a couple characters. I'm going to say 2-ish characters a month. So if that's our limit, if we can only build a couple extra characters a month, who should those characters be? Well, generally speaking, they're going to be those meta characters, right? Those plug and play characters that you can use in multiple different teams, right? You get more bang for your buck, so to speak, with characters you can move around than one solid static team. So we think about characters like Odin, right? Obviously Professor X when he gets out. Apocalypse, Mephisto, who's not on here, right? Maybe Old Man Logan, maybe the Super Skrull. So any type of character, maybe the Black Knight, that you can plug and play, you're much better off powering up those characters, right? Than trying to reach back and power up a team just for a specific game mode, just for a specific purpose, if you're not really going to get much benefit out of that. So based on that, in my opinion, Overpower is designed to help push older teams out of the meta, right? If you're not going to spend, then those teams to you are going to be worthless. You're not going to be able to use them and they're not going to affect the game, right? You only have, in the previous example, we had 5 characters there. And if we're saying 2 characters a month, right, 12 months, that's 24. Let's round up and say 25, and then say 5 of those are those meta tunes that you're going to take. That only leaves 20 other characters. And we're exaggerating here. You don't get that many on the free-to-play side. But let's say that we do. That's 4. That's 4 teams. That's 4 teams from the old meta that you would bring into the new meta year after year. So the entirety of your roster is not something that we're supposed to be investing in. This is something that has persisted for a long time, and we have to change that mentality in the community. Overpower is going to assist in ushering those older teams out. That will be better for the game. Do not waste your resources on characters and teams that you're not using. And just like anything else in life, what we are able to do or not able to do is going to be different than someone else. So we can't compare what we're doing with other people, right? Comparison is a thief of joy, as they say, and Overpower is kind of making people do that. We're comparing what we're able to do with other people, and it's causing frustration. We have to keep in mind there are different ways people play the game. And with that, that's going to change again what you're able to do. People that are spending, people that are more hardcore, people that are in a combination of both of those things are going to put more time, effort, money into the backlog of their roster. And they're going to do that because they're using those characters. They're using those characters and they're able to afford it, so to speak. If we're not in that position, then we should just let that part of the game go. All right. That's part of what the balancing act is doing. That's what's happening. So we just need to kind of let that portion go and move forward. One member of the community had a very interesting observation. He believes this is what Overpower will do. It will more definitely separate people into their brackets. Free to play will be there on the left. Can't see them, but we got dolphins, whales, and krakens. Okay. And so it will push people more into those brackets. It should increase then competition because you're competing with people who play the game like you. The competition will be more evenly balanced. Individuals who are more hardcore, will say, take the game very, very serious, should be able to still punch their way up into that next level. They should be able to kind of start fighting with the people in that next portion of the bracket, right? So if you're a free-to-play player, you can punch up into the dolphins. Whales can start punching up and getting involved with the krakens. It will be difficult to go up 2 levels. Right? This is just his observation. He was sharing with me. This was his thought process, and I just wanted to share it with you. It seems like a sound and valid idea, and maybe this is the kind of balance that they're trying to bring to the game. And if that is the case, if they really believe that the balance of the game is getting back in shape, then perhaps we're on the right track. I'm not saying the Overpower is awesome. I'm not saying that I enjoy it, but we can look at the Thunderbolts team, for example. They look like teams and characters that we're much more used to, right? They have abilities that are not locked specifically to their game mode. They have a couple characters you could piece out and plug and play in other places. So it looks like we're getting back to the Marvel Strike Force that does indeed have theory crafting and is the game that most of us have grown up to enjoy. So if we have to choose between an adjustment like this or the old school cookie cutter meta, what do we want, right? What kind of game do we want to play? If Overpower functions as intended, then again, in my opinion, that means the meta is much more easily controlled. And when teams and characters come out, they will function as intended, right? Counters and things like that will be much more easier to understand. And if there are individuals that break that, that's because the people invested in that and they deserve it. Adjustments can be hard if something is broken, right? For example, if someone has illustratively broken a bone, what has to happen? They go to the doctor and the doctor has to set the bone. That's painful. It hurts. That's an adjustment. No one wants that part to happen, but it's necessary to get things back on track and make sure things are able to grow in the right manner. I believe Overpower is just like that. It's resetting the game. It's painful. It's not enjoyable. I'm not saying that it's fun, but I believe it's being done to get the game back on track. Now, this was the catalyst for me putting this video together. I had a member of the community reach out. We were talking about Overpower. He was voicing his concerns, and he's basically said he's come to the conclusion that he's going to simply keep playing the game until he can. The definition, the context behind this is he's concerned about the PvE, the player versus environment Overpower, because Overpower is being presented as a punishment. He believes, right? This is a member of the community. This is a member of the community. So we talk about community being outraged and feelings and emotions, but we're not addressing the problems. And to do that, we need clear communication, and we have to communicate with each other. Overpower is not a punishment. This player sincerely believes that when the PvE portion, the player versus environment portion of Overpowered is introduced into the game, that us as free-to-play players are simply going to be pushed out of the game and won't be able to play. And that simply is not true. There's no way that that's true. Marvel Strike Force has never operated like that, ever. Ever. There's no mobile game in their right mind that would make it so their free-to-play people can't play the game, because that's where your spenders come from. That's where your spenders come from. People play the game. Again, everybody might not be sitting here coming in and dropping thousands of dollars, but your regular free-to-play community from time to time will drop $5 here, $10 there, things of that nature. They need the free-to-play players. They need new players, right? New players won't have anything. So if the PvE portion is designed to push free-to-play players out of the game, then your new players won't be able to do anything. People don't come into the game brand new and decide to spend insane amounts of money. They want to test the game out first. And if they can't, they're not going to play. So this is not something that is happening. Overpower is not designed to punish. It is, however, designed to balance the game and reset it. And that reset is painful. Part of that process, Mr. Ryan Jacobson seems to allude to, right? So we saw the Strike Spot, the live stream that they had a few weeks ago. He seems to allude to they're taking the brakes off of a lot of things. So we got free legendary characters, provided that we engage with the game. Characters will be available faster than ever before, he said, right? Will be available to us faster than ever before on the free-to-play side of things. He's saying he wants to reward engagement in time. There's this new store that's supposed to help us get things. So we'll have to see what happens when all this stuff starts kicking in during the age of Annihilus. But in my opinion, a lot of the things that have already happened and then the things that he's saying is going to happen shows that they're taking the brakes off of a lot of things. And if that's the case, that means that they believe that Overpower is indeed going to do what they want it to do, and that is to bring balance, to rebalance things in the game. That way, the different levels of play won't interfere with each other unless we do something to make that happen. That's usually going to mean spending weird amounts of time, maybe being a min-maxer and or spending money. In my book, that's okay. I'm not saying that I like Overpower. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it does appear that it's their way to reset the meta to make sure the game functions normally. So what do you think? I know there's a lot going on. That was a lot of information. Thanks for sticking it through. I'm open to suggestions. Scopely, I'm open to criticism. If there's clarification, right? If I'm missing some things and there's clarifications, definitely open to that, right? I'd like to open up that dialogue, open that discussion. We need to get back to that. I need to get back to that. And we're going to focus on that in this year. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments below. Do you think that there's another way to do this? Do you think there's another way to go about it? But we need to be mindful that we're trying to rebalance the game as a whole. So it can't be something that's just better for me. It has to be something that can help balance the game as a whole. It's been 7 years. So to have a drastic measure like this, that's not necessarily bad. But I do have a feeling that what happened is they've been trying some experiments over time. Nothing seems to be working. There's going to be pushback either way. So they're just like, we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off. This is our idea. This is how we're going to get it done. They're not taking any feedback on it. And it's just all out. And we're going to move forward from here. That's the foundation that they're going to be building on. And again, I don't think that's coming from a place of maliciousness. I just think this needs to change. We need to fix it. It's going to be a drastic move. They know there's going to be negative feedback. It kind of is what it is. But again, if you think that there's a different way they could go about it, or at least adjustments that could be made, 100% open to that. Please leave them in the comments. I can pass them forward. Just really like to know your thoughts. So as we're getting into the age of Annihilus, I am excited for that. I want to know how that's going to go down. I want to know what's going to happen. And if you don't know who Annihilus is, then please make sure to check this video out right here.